Take his rifle away. This is no Zaku, boy. No Zaku!
Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Ma.k Man at YouTube with another model building video. Unboxing, assembling and finishing the 1/100 no grade Gouf from the 1980s. An original tooling reissue, approximately late 90s, early 2000s. Retailing at approximately 800 yen or over $20. The kit contains 4 runners, 3 blue, 1 black, injection molded styrene, no polycaps, a single mono eye sticker, charming yet cluttered technical drawing instructions, mostly in Japanese. Not rare but fairly uncommon. The construction process will be my usual take on older builds. Typical scale model techniques using the 2-cut method with side cutters, nub trim and sand. Parts adhered together with plastic cement and the seams filled. Glued together kit, little guiding pins but no snap fit. The fit has an obvious gap and requires seam line filling putty and sanding up to hours or the next day. During 2023, my father toured Japan and Tokyo, browsed a few non-hobby second-hand shops, and purchased this as a souvenir on a whim, knowing I love vintage mecha and anime kits. Funny enough, I have this guy already in my backlog with another 2 or 3 boxings in my hobby shop. I decided to keep and build the gift which had the worst box art, which was misleadingly sold at a tourist trap for being something from the 80s when it's not. Amusing story, but I love it and it's a very thoughtful gift. The build starts at the head and works its way down with each component being correctly color separated with many knuckles and swivel joints for articulation. Each component clamp or anchors onto a shaft or shank. For those obtaining for a seamless and clean build, this can be tedious and very time consuming as each layer can only be tackled every day or with many hours in between due to drying of putty. To speed things along, I normally go off the instructions and start the first part on each limb and the head. Glue and fill, wait for a day and add the next knuckle and normally a third knuckle. The last day, the torso clamps it all together. This is my first larger or 1/100 vintage build. It has a lot more points of articulation, thicker parts for greater strength, and honestly has a lot of room for fair mobility, detail and proportions appropriate to the style and period. Only problematic component is the crutch area, which will break when contact of glue, solvent or paint is made and needed to be permanently glued at a later date. Where panel line or detail was very shallow, I added extra styrene plate and cut up piping and heat rod, drilling out the center and running them through a wire for a much deeper knuckle joint. The design is very clever, interesting and different to other vintage kits I build. Can honestly say I had a lot of fun and was able to spread out some creativity with this process. The Gouf is an antagonist mobile suit from the original Gundam anime Mobile Suit Gundam. It is very popular and even the focus of a lot of memes like the No Zaku boy in English. It is a prized, more modern and detailed tanks in other grades and scales. We've also scribed some panel lines and polished every bit of plastic and surface to allow for greater adhesion during the priming stage. It is a very faithful reproduction of the original line art from the 80s anime. The kit assembled with no issue and stands on its own weight and would retain a vintage toy look just glued together, no paint or a little panel line marker. Many parts were able to be mounted on ejector pin marks or pegs detail, reverse molded, but some areas such as the chest and the knees had nothing to grip onto. A bit of runner was cemented on the back of the part where you would not see it after assembly for a point to be grabbed by the alligator clip and snapped off before final assembly. I used automotive primer mixed with lacquer thinner to spray all the pieces with a small low wattage compressor and a double action 0.3mm airbrush. Disaster struck as seams re-split. There was a few pit marks, there was a few sunken areas from bad tooling, and I don't know if it's the age of the plastic, but a couple of parts crazed and cracked. This all needed to be sanded back and re-primed a second time around, which left a much superior and smoother surface for painting. As mentioned, the crutch piece did break during this phase, which did not stop us from moving to the painting stage. First, we targeted the easiest section, the black trim on the feet and knees. That started with a cheap automotive black and 2 tones of very dark grey, gradient shaded on, followed by pre-shading on all the blue components with thick black lines on all corners and shadowed in under areas. With a lot of plain blue colour, this is the perfect canvas. Introducing Max Watanabe, a master modeler and professional promoter and designer, featured many times in hobby spaces from magazines to TV shows, commercials and events, conning his own style and methods of modelling. In aircraft circles, motting, a very old airbrush technique, but more commonly referred to as the Max Watanabe technique, you would dot a bunch of different colour dots on a surface with your airbrush and then shade it with a transparent base coat to give a very splotchy appearance. I did 2 shades of blue for further colour modulation on top, little hand painting, and straight into dirting and shading the bell thrusters for definition and grit lived in look. After allowing a day and night for everything to fully chemically harden and cure, I mixed up a viscous sludge wash with gum terps and covered all the panels and recessed details, wiping away the excess. Another 24 hours later, I've come accustomed to using 2-part automotive clears. Mixing flash clear and HS hardener got a beautiful deep wet look gloss, which could be buffed very shortly after. It's so easy to use, it's criminal. Buffed out a little imperfections, PVA glued a flat back gem for the mono eye, followed by slowly assembling the post-painted colour separatable and articulated points. The pins attached to the segmented tubing made it very easy. A final gloss coat of floor polish for an extra deeper sheen, concluding this fairly interesting build. Without applying some very heavy structural modifications or complete kit bashing, the posing can be a bit stiff and lack fluidity. This was made less awkward with the movement of the feet and arms with a fairly coiled position of the heat rod. All the plain surfaces were broken up with the motting splotches. A lot of painted and a little bit of scratch detail. Heavy gloss on a dark scheme does make it a bit of a visual spectacle. It definitely does look more tin toy than a gritty anime accurate super robot. I'm a little torn up if I should have done a lighter tone of blue or kept it very dark, very shiny. Regardless, I'm pretty pleased how this came out. Maybe 1 or 2 flaws and awkward aspects, though I had an incredible amount of fun throughout the entire process. Pretty much reigniting my love for vintage builds. I'll always recommend picking up a reboxing, or even if you're lucky, an original one, as they're fairly cheap even with increasing prices in the hobby. With occasional luck at your local hobby store, or most definitely searching around a bit on the internet for something that you may fancy or a complete random attempt. This pretty much concludes my 1/100 no grade Gouf from Mobile Suit Gundam by Bandai. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. We'll catch you guys next time. Always happy to take questions in the comment section below or other socials. Check out the links down below for references and other content I do post around. We will catch you guys next time. See you later.